Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Friday, July 11th, 2025. It's the end of the week, the end of the day. It's our favorite time, our intelligence community roundtable with Larry Johnson and Ray McGovern. Ray has been traveling in Europe and is kind enough to break away from his lecture schedule to join us. Guys, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for the double duty. Thank you for the information you provide me during the week, and thank you for letting me pick your brains now. Larry, to you first. Why do you think Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has visited the White House and Capitol Hill 3 times in the past 6 months during the presidency of Donald Trump?
Well, this time is to lock down more aid because they were devastated by what Iran did to them over the course of those 12 days. That's number one. Number two, to try to see, take the temperature of Trump face to face and see if he can get him convinced to make another go at Iran. I don't think they're finished at all. Trump for his part, maybe one explanation for why he's going so hard after the judges in Israel who are hearing the case involving Netanyahu's corruption is that if he can get Netanyahu off, so to speak, and then get Netanyahu convinced to move forward with the ceasefire, because Trump is, he's keen, man. He wants that Nobel Prize, so he's going to do anything he can. And so maybe to that extent, there's some additional negotiation. But listening to Netanyahu at the end of the trip, I think Netanyahu got everything he wanted out of Trump.
Ray, I think Larry's correct. Netanyahu was as tenacious as ever, and I think as manipulative as ever. What is your take as to how to justify 3 meetings? It's actually more than 3 meetings. It's 3 trips. This trip alone had 3 meetings with Trump, only 2 of which were partially on television.
I think, Judge, it has to do with internal politics in Tel Aviv or West Jerusalem. Netanyahu needs every chance to show that Trump is backing him 100%. And these trips hope that to the degree that Trump sort of ratifies that. And this is, let's face it, this is Netanyahu's strongest hand. He has the backing of the President of the United States. And I think that was mostly why he came. The serving of or giving him the copy of the Nobel Prize, well, my God, one war criminal giving a Nobel Prize nomination to another one. I mean, that was a little bit too much to take, but we have to laugh these things off. Otherwise, we die crying.
Right. Larry, is there any analysis you can share about the timing of Netanyahu's trip and the decision of the Justice Department, both occurred on the same day, to do a 180 on the Epstein files? The Justice Department, the Attorney General said they were on her desk while Netanyahu's here. Maybe I'm reading more in this than there is. I don't know. That's why I want your thoughts. She and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino announced there's no enemies. There's no client list. We never had one. There's nothing to reveal.
Yeah, you mean you don't believe in coincidence? Jeez. God almighty. Look, the client list does exist. It's been admitted to by others. Ryan Dawson has compiled it, not by just sitting down and coming up with names out of his own mind, but he actually read through all the court transcripts, all the witness statements, all the charging documents, and he was able to come up with a list of 78 people that include folks like Jamie Dimon, Robert Kraft. Now,
you published that list on your website, did you?
Yeah, it's Sonar 21. Now, note, there are billionaires on that list. If Ryan was putting their names out and saying, hey, they're on the Epstein list, and he'd be sued if it was false. So that's why he hasn't been sued by one of them. That tells you a lot right there. I also learned this week from my business partner who has brought a tax case against the Clinton Foundation that he received from one of the Scandinavian countries a flight manifest from Mr. Epstein, and on that plane, Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, and James Comey. They flew from the island up into one of the Scandinavian countries. Now, what were they doing? I don't know. Maybe attending a chess tournament. Who knows? But the point is, this administration, they're not protecting Donald Trump, because I tell you, if Trump was on that list, do you think the Biden crew would have let that, kept and protected that? Oh, absolutely not. They would have destroyed him with it. But two things are going on. One, protecting this as an Israeli intelligence asset. And number two, there are friends of Donald Trump on that list. He may not have even paid attention to it before, but once he saw his friends on that list, he said, I'm not going to let him be ratted out. But I think it had more to do with, as a Mossad asset with some CIA involvement, very likely.
Ray, was Epstein a Mossad asset, and would the Mossad use sexual blackmail to control public policy of a country?
Yes, and certainly yes. They've done it in the past. The Nunu was captured, or sort of a honeypot sort of operation. The fellow who revealed with photos what the Israelis were doing with respect to working on an atomic bomb. So yeah, it's part of the tradecraft. I'm not sure. I would have to say that not only Israelis do this sort of thing, but this is done by virtually all intelligence services.
What, do you know the extent of, from your friends in intelligence, Epstein's activities with Mossad? Was he an agent? Was he an asset? Was he paid? Did they have damaging information on him to the point where he was forced to work for them?
Well, obviously someone paid him big bucks.
Right.
Now, I don't know who exactly that was, but if you put in perspective all the people that profited from his operations, the Israelis in the first instance, and all those fellows that had this great time on that island in the second one, they never thought that they would be blackmailable. That's really stupid. Why else would they be given these favors? But somebody paid and somebody got them killed. I mean, it's pretty clear, huh? It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Somebody got him killed in that prison. So will this come out? Well, hopefully it will. Maybe Kash Patel is going to pursue this like a bulldog, but maybe not. We'll just have to see.
It doesn't seem like it. Dr. Michael Baden, who's the world's foremost pathologist and a friend of mine from testifying before me, and used by the government over and over again, has testified under oath that there's no way under the laws of physics that Epstein could have broken his own neck in the manner in which it was broken. Larry, will Israel ever be at peace with its neighbors until they're all reduced, unless they're all reduced to the status of Libya or Syria?
No, it's impossible, because the entire premise of Zionism, which emerged in the late 19th century, is it wasn't a religious.
Oh, wait a minute, Larry. Ted Cruz told Tucker Carlson that the references to Israel in the Old Testament were to the country governed by Benjamin Netanyahu today. I had to get that in there. I know you know this. Go ahead.
He forgot to understand that first promise was to Abraham and to all nations. And gee, if that promise is to Abraham, that means the Arabs, the Muslims as well, are blessed under that.
Correct. Islam is an Abrahamic religion. Go ahead.
So he just doesn't know his Bible very well. But that's what's the absurdity of all of this, that this political movement that came out of basically Europe, and with Theodore Herzl as the big advocate, who was not a religious, he wasn't a religious Jew. They premised this entire thing that God gave this land to us, but we don't believe in God. So I'm going, yeah, how does that work? That's like being a secular Christian,
No. So there's never going to be peace there, and
No.
they're never going to be self-sufficient. They are counting on Donald Trump and subsequent Donald Trumps to continue to provide them with aid at the expense of the American government. Did you know that Netanyahu flew home with 2 jets that Trump gave him from the Air Force? I didn't know the president could just give away Air Force jets, Ray McGovern. Did you?
Well, did he have a foot on each one? Was he astride the 2 jets? Netanyahu is pretty agile. No, I think it's ridiculous. And it really is a matter of time, I think. The latest polls show that a lot of Americans don't like genocide. A lot of Americans are seeing the photos coming from Gaza. A lot of Americans, much fewer than 80% that Netanyahu bragged about having. 80%, he said, 80% of the Americans will support us no matter what. That is absurd, end quote. Well, it was absurd then when he said it 25 years ago. It's even more absurd now. He's below 50% in my view, if you take a nationwide poll of those who know what's going on in the world. So that's the change. That's a salutary change. It's just that it's coming so damn slow that hundreds of thousands of more Palestinians are likely to be killed in the interim.
Larry, and I forgot to run this, so we're going to back up to Epstein for a minute. And I know you're of the belief, and rightly so, that Trump's name is on it, or the Biden DOJ would have revealed it. But when Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, was asked by a reporter at a cabinet meeting what became of the client list, before she could answer, the president said this.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering, President.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein.
In February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And that's it on Epstein.
Well, Marco Rubio, like he's watching a tennis match between the two of them. I couldn't help but noting that. Let's move on. Larry, how do you explain, speak about tennis match or ping pong, how do you explain aid to Ukraine? On again, off again, on again, increased again. That's what we've seen in the past 2 weeks with Trump.
This kind of erratic behavior, I think there's something mentally wrong with Trump. And in fact, I've spoken to, I without revealing my source, somebody who has had frequent meetings with Trump over the last 18 months, said that in these last meetings, he's noticed a noticeable change related to age. And when you listen to Trump talk, he talks in this monotone, like he's Rain Man, with some sort of autistic disease. But to play these kinds of games with the weapons and with war in Ukraine, Russia's just laughing at him because they recognize they're not going to get a serious deal. So they know the game. Praise him, tell him he's wonderful, say, hey, man, we think you too should get the Nobel Peace Prize. But the Russians are going to keep doing what the Russians are doing. They're going to defeat the Ukrainians. But did you see the other day that there were 4 Iskander missiles that hit Kiev? Trump sending 10 Patriot missiles. Each, you have to fire 2 of those Patriot missiles to try to take out one Iskander, which they can't do. But the point is, in that 1 minute, with 4 rockets coming in, you would have used up 80% of what Donald Trump is sending. So, wow. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's just absurd theater.
Ray, before you jump in on this, and of course I want you to watch this. Chris, cut number 11.
Are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Your defensive weapons, primarily.
Mr. President, you want to send more weapons to Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We wanted to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
Sir, yesterday you said that you were not sure who ordered the munitions halted to Ukraine. Have you since been able to figure that out?
Well, I haven't thought about it because we're looking at Ukraine right now and munitions, but I have not gone into it.
What does it say that such a big decision could be made inside your government without you knowing?
I would know. If a decision was made, I will know. I'll be the first to know. In fact, most likely I'd give the order, but I haven't done that yet.
What's the Kremlin think, Ray McGovern, when they see the American president speaking like that? I mean, this is beyond what Larry's colleague has described.
Well, Judge, I'm sure that the Kremlin has its own equivalent of what we used to have in the CIA, at a distance psychological profiles. And I'm sure they've come up with results similar to what Larry mentioned before. The man is erratic, the man may be sick, but he's the guy that they can deal with. The only guy they can deal with for the next 3 years. And they've said, oh yeah, when Trump says, oh, I am not happy with Russia, I'm not happy with Mr. Well, the reaction from Putin's spokesperson is, yeah, well, the president of the United States is erratic and not always consistent, but we're operating on a tougher plane, on an overseer plane. We want to develop relations. Now, what's the proof I would adduce? Well, just yesterday, Rubio meeting with Lavrov in Kuala Lumpur. They met for an hour, and what was the readout? It said, well, Rubio, here's what Rubio says. The Russians have a new and different kind of suggestion on Ukraine. I'm going to bring that back to the president. It's something like a step-by-step approach, like a roadmap, says Rubio, okay? And the whole thing is described by the Russians as a mutually respectful dialogue on a growing range of issues of mutual interest. So all I can say here is that the Russians are aware that this guy may be a little bit deranged. He's the only fellow they can work with. The Russians have the upper hand in Ukraine. They don't need to rush. They need to see what Trump is willing to do in terms of getting Ukraine behind him so he can move on to bigger and better things, my God, in the Middle East and in China, with respect to China. So all I'm saying here is it's become increasingly clear that even though Trump says every other day, I'm really not happy with those Russians, the Russians just dust it off and say, look, we think the guy is serious. We're going to test that out. But in any case, we're winning. And we're going just to see how much of a deal we can cut so that we don't have to take over the whole country.
Larry, are the neocons in his administration finally triumphant?
Yeah, I'd say so. They're getting everything that they want at this point. It's unfortunate that Trump likes to think of himself as being Reagan-esque. Reagan, with all of his faults and flaws, he actually did a good job of selecting good people in positions, whether you got Caspar Weinberger as Secretary of Defense, George Shultz as Secretary of State. I mean, I'm not saying that you agree with their policies, but at least they were intelligent, thoughtful.
Schultz was a giant.
But, Trump's got a clown show going on. Yeah. He doesn't, he made his money, part of his money on television, pretending that he knew how to hire and fire people. And yet, look at what he's done. Just the lack of quality between the likes of Hegseth and Marco Rubio. They're not even in the same league. But he is, I'm afraid, continuing to follow their line. If he had a clear vision about being Mr. Peace, he would have cut off all the weapons flows. He would have cut off the intelligence cooperation and would have brought an end to this war there, as well as in Palestine. But instead, he enables the genocide in Palestine, and he allows this war to continue.
Ray, if Rubio said that Lavrov gave him a new version of things, Rubio was naive. The Russians have had the same 5 or 6 conditions, beginning with no NATO and ending with no military from the beginning. What could Lavrov possibly have said that Rubio thinks is newsworthy or different and worthy of transmitting to the president, unless Rubio, who's not been part of the negotiations because Witkoff has, is first now exposed to this?
Well, Judge, we'll have to see, won't we? Rubio's got a new set of suggestions from the Russians. He thinks it's interesting enough to mention to the press that he's going to take them back to the president. And he says, it's really kind of funny. It's a step-by-step kind of a roadmap. Well, hello, that may be naive. That's the way you do these negotiations. Now, I'm not saying that the Russian terms have changed. They haven't, and they won't, because the Russians are winning. What I am saying is that if the neocons were completely in control, there would be no talks with the Russians. There would be no Trump reaching out to say, oh, I'd like to meet or talk to Putin again. There would be no hope on the Russian side that they could make a deal. The deal is there in the offing. It's going to be heavily favored in Russia's favor, of course, and it's going to take another month before the Ukrainian army collapses. But the deal is there for the making, and I have to make sure that people realize that at least I differentiate between the Dr. Jekyll and the Mr. Hyde. The Dr. Jekyll on Ukraine, Trump I'm talking about, of course, and the Mr. Hyde that enables genocide, for God's sake, and worse, in joining a war aggression against Iran. So, I'll take the Dr. Jekyll, and I think that's the attitude that Putin has. He's the only guy we have. We're talking to him. Rubio talks to Lavrov, and Rubio says, whoop, wait a second, here's some good suggestions. I'm going to take that. So, let's not prejudge this. Let's see what Rubio comes up with, or what the president says. Well, that's not a bad idea. I hadn't thought of that step by step. Oh, well, that's interesting. Before we prejudge the thing and say that the president is really not realistic, or he's dumb, or he's hemmed in completely by the neocons.
But Larry, the neocons will never accept anything less than a Russian military evacuation from eastern Ukraine. That is not only unrealistic, it's impossible.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Look, Lavrov had an interview last week with Magyar Nemzet, a Hungarian news outlet, and he gave the strongest, clearest outline of what Russia's position is, and it hasn't. The only thing that's changed from what Vladimir Putin presented on June 14th, 2024, is that he's now that the West has got to recognize that Crimea, Sevastopol, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson are. In fact, this is what he said. He said, there must be international legal recognition of the new territorial realities following the accession of Crimea, Sevastopol, the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics, as well as the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions into the Russian Federation. So, and on the agenda are the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, lifting of anti-Russian sanctions, withdrawal of lawsuits against Russia, and return of illegally frozen assets in the West. That's what Rubio heard.
Wait a second. Larry, what's the date of what Lavrov said that you quoted? What's the date?
It was last week. It was like
okay. Well, I'm talking about yesterday.
Ray.
He talked to Rubio yesterday.
No, absolutely not. I spoke with Lavrov. Judge and I both spoke with Lavrov. He doesn't go out and say this and then come out and say something different from that. Are you kidding?
Of course he does. In private, he tells
Oh, no.
Rubio exactly what Rubio said. Yeah, look.
No.
When you
talk to Rubio, let's entertain the possibility that Rubio's lying.
Well, why would he lie about this?
Why would he lie about? He wants to put. Larry, he'll put the spin on it, Ray.
Larry, when you talk to Lavrov, What exactly did he tell you?
Well,
He
the
didn't say
same
he
just told us
said
the
he said
same
exactly
six
what's in this
conditions.
message. He said
The
exactly
same
what's in
six-
this message.
He
Yeah,
told us
okay.
the same 6 conditions that President Putin said in 2022, which Larry just articulated.
Yeah, I'm not talking about when you and Larry were together in Moscow. What I'm talking about was Larry was there alone. And he reported that Lavrov said something to him 3 times, and where there's no justification for that because the video was on all that time, and Lavrov said no such thing. So if we're talking
No,
about what Love says,
listen,
we
Ray,
can say what he
Ray,
said 8 days
Ray,
ago. Now we say
sorry,
what he
you're
says.
wrong. You're
Yep.
wrong on this, Ray.
Okay, then show me the proof. Show me the video.
I just showed you the proof right here with the 3 paragraphs that Lavrov said to the Hungarians, and he repeated it at BRICS. You've been traveling. You haven't had a chance to read this or watch it.
That's their going in position, Larry. What he said to Rubio yesterday is what Rubio is reporting back that's different. You know, you can't go with the old thing. Of course, they're going to go with the maximum position. What I'm saying here is that Love said something different to Rubio yesterday, and Rubio and the readout from the Russian side said this is a very respectful.
All right, let me jump in.
No, that's ridiculous.
Let me jump in. I'm watching 2 of my closest friends, comrades, colleagues who have advised me over the years, and each of whom appears twice a week or more on this show, disagree with each other. The audience loves
We respectfully disagree.
Yes. As JFK said, we will disagree agreeably. So on that, we will finish, gentlemen. Have a great weekend. We'll see you both on Monday. Thank you for your time. Thanks for the double duty. Thanks for still loving each other while you're throwing the punches. Have a great weekend.
You too, Judge.
Thank you. All the best to both of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, Monday is a very busy day for us. At 8 in the morning, Alistair Crook. At 10 in the morning, Ray McGovern. At 10:45 in the morning, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. At 11:30 in the morning, Larry Johnson. At 1 in the afternoon, Colonel Douglas McGregor. At 2 in the afternoon, Scott Ritter. Hang on to your seatbelts. Have a great weekend, everybody. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.